Hello, today's episode is all about retinoids. So I get asked about these all the time. Most people call them retinols. People ask, what are they? Why do we need them? What's the point in having them in our skincare? How do they work? And I think there's quite a lot of confusion as well about this ingredient. So first of all, retinoids are a huge family of compounds related to vitamin A. You might have heard of vitamin A in other forms because we consume it in our diet. So humans require vitamin A orally, so in our diet, because it helps with the functioning of our immune system, reproductive system, our skin, muscles, bones. It also helps with our vision. So consuming vitamin A is really important in the diet, and most people will get the recommended amount, which is around 600 micrograms for a woman, 700 micrograms for a man, just through our diet. You can take supplements, but you do have to be really careful to make sure that you don't basically consume too much, because that can actually have adverse health effects. I believe the maximum recommended amount is 1500 micrograms, but you might need to double check that. I'll always recommend, if you are going to take supplements, then speak to your doctor beforehand, just to make sure that the supplements you're planning to take are all safe to take together and you're not going to be taking too much of anything. Now, vitamin A in the dietary form can be consumed through fish, oily fish, yogurts, dairy products, liver products such as pate, and you can also actually get vitamin A through beta carotene in vegetables, so green, orange, yellow vegetables like peppers, sweet potatoes, carrots, and also through yellow fruits, things like apricots. So there's different ways which you can get it through your diet, and most people will get the recommended amount in their diet. Now, when it comes to skincare, you'll hear a lot about retinoids. And retinoids is basically the category of compounds, so the whole group. And that includes retinoic acid, retinaldehyde, retinols, and retinol esters. And these are often used interchangeably. So especially when it comes to over-the-counter skincare, you generally hear about retinols. Now, the reason why they're so important is because they actually help regulate your skin cycle. When we're children and teenagers, it takes around 10 to 21 days for your skin to replenish itself. Now, skin is the biggest organ in the body, so that's really impressive to think that your skin turnover only takes a matter of 1 or 2 weeks when you're younger. Unfortunately, as we get older, this process massively slows down. So what happens is the basal cells, so the skin cells in the bottom layer of the skin, start to move, they are produced, they start to mature and move up the layers of the skin to the surface, where they become more dried out, and undergo a process called keratinization, which is where they basically become dry, flaky, eventually they die, and they sit on the top of the skin until they shed or they're exfoliated. Now, this is all happening in the epidermis, which is the very top layer of the skin. So we have subcutaneous tissue, on top of that is the dermis, and on top of that is the epidermis. So what I'm talking about through this when it comes to retinoids is actually all about the epidermis, top layer of the skin, which is broken down into lots more layers, which has the basal layer at the bottom. The skin cells are produced there, they move up to the top, then they fall off. And that process keeps the skin looking fresh and firm and tight, and we have collagen and elastin between these skin cells, which act as padding. As we get older, this fresh skin cell turnover slows down, and we have less collagen and elastin, so less padding, the skin becomes less springy. Now, what we're aiming to do when we add a topical retinoid product onto the skin is to speed up or boost that production of fresh skin cells coming up to the surface. The most effective way to do this using a topical skincare is to introduce a retinoid. It's actually the only proven skincare ingredient to improve fine lines and wrinkles. So it really is the best ingredient for anti-aging. Now, I don't recommend using a retinoic acid or a retinol. I'm going to explain the difference in a moment. I don't recommend using vitamin A products if you're pregnant. There hasn't actually been any evidence to show that it will cause any damage to the fetus, because it's not believed that significant amounts actually enter the bloodstream or the milk, if at all. However, it hasn't been clinically proven that it's safe. So it's not really ethical to see if it's safe to use. So it just hasn't been tested, and therefore it's advised against. It's different when it comes to oral consumption of vitamin A, where it's known to cause damage to the baby in the womb if you have too much. So often I'll get asked about pregnancy and using these products. I'd say they're not for you, but you can use other ingredients such as bakuchiol, which is basically a plant-derived pregnancy safe version of retinol. So it's basically very similar in the way it functions and what it can do. So the difference between these ingredients, we've got retinoic acid, which is the most potent retinoid. They're all retinoids. Retinoic acid is the most potent form. You get it on prescription in most cases, so that's what tretinoin is. And it's actually generally the one which causes the most sensitivity, the most irritation of the skin, because it's the most potent. But this does also mean you tend to see results quicker, so it could be considered to be a bit more effective in the short term. Now, when you put retinoic acid on the skin, that is its active form. So it's immediately active on the skin, gets to work straight away, regulating that skin cycle or that skin cell turnover. When you apply retinaldehydes to the skin, which is a different ingredient, they have to be converted into retinoic acid in order to be effective. So they're slightly less potent because they require conversion from a retinaldehyde to a retinoic acid in order to be acting on the skin. Now, retinol requires two conversions. You have retinol, which needs to be sort of converted into retinaldehyde and then converted again into retinoic acid. So it requires two conversions, which means it's a lot less potent, but it generally causes less irritation, sensitivity, and reactions on the skin. Then you have retinol esters, which require three conversions to get to retinoic acid, so even less potent, and generally it's going to take a lot longer to see results from having that ingredient in your skincare. Doesn't mean to say it's not effective, it can just take a little bit longer. Now, ideally, patients would be using retinoic acid, but in general, that sensitivity can be experienced because these fresh baby skin cells are coming up to the surface, they're not maturing quick enough, you're getting this buildup of dead, dry skin on the surface, which makes your skin more peely, flaky, and irritated. So it can initially make your skin seem worse, and it can actually make fine lines appear worse just because of the dryness. But very quickly, most people's skin gets used to it, and you start to see the results within a few weeks. Now, one of my favourite retinoic acid products is actually the Skin Better Science Alpha Ret, because it's a really unique patented formulation where the retinoic acid is combined with a lactic acid to form a moisturising and hydrating form of retinoic acid that's really, really effective, but actually causes minimal sensitivity. So many people can tolerate it really, really well. I absolutely love the Skin Better Science Alpha Ret range. But that doesn't mean that other products aren't going to get you the same results. You just might see some sensitivity along the way. Now, when it comes to retinoids that you've bought over the counter, I'll often have people say, oh, I've been using this 1% retinol from the pharmacy, for example, and I will then put them on a 0.25% product from one of my ranges, and their skin is really dry and sensitive. So it's important to consider that actually not all retinoids are created equal, and generally the formulation, the delivery system, the way that the product is actually formulated has a massive impact on its effectiveness and how it's going to work. So generally I recommend a medical grade, which isn't really a real thing. It's not a sort of a licensed term, but when we say medical grade, we usually mean clinically proven prescribed skincare to get the maximum results. Now, if you are experiencing some sensitivity from using retinoids or introducing a retinoid to your routine, if you have got that sensitivity from a retinoid, something that you can do to improve that is to either use a sandwich technique where you can apply a hydrating serum beforehand and then a moisturizer afterwards. So you sandwich the retinoid in between two hydrating and moisturizing products. Or you can reduce the frequency of use, so just use that retinoid maybe once a week at first, gradually building it up to using it more frequently. Ideally, you want to be using it every day. So it's better to use a lower concentration every single day than it is to use a higher concentration sporadically. So trying to get that consistency is key. And another thing you can do is actually look at the product itself and the formulation of what you're using, because it might just be that a different brand is going to be more suited to you. So I hope that makes it a bit clearer as to what retinoids are, why we use them. They help to speed up that skin's turnover, bringing fresh baby cells up to the surface, helping up the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles. It also can help with pigmentation because you can help shift up that pigment to the surface of the skin, allowing it to be exfoliated as well. So if you do have any questions at all about retinoids, if you want to book a consultation to talk about the skincare that you're using, then please feel free to get in touch. You can book online on the website, which is www.renave.co.uk. That's renave.co.uk. Or you can follow me on social media where I share tips like this every single day. It's at dr.bethany-rushworth, and all of the information is in the show notes beneath. I hope you've really enjoyed this podcast, short and sweet today, and I look forward to catching up with you all soon. Please like and subscribe. It really helps support the channel so that I can get more interesting guests on to talk to you and share their stories. Bye for now.